Hi, this is Mike Hendrickson, live from Strata, New York. I'm here with Terry Jones, the founder and CEO of Fluid Info. Terry, welcome to Strata.
Thanks, Mike. Nice to see you again.
So, there's been a lot of talk about data here, and big data, and all these different forms of data, and where it's going and where it's being stored. Can you talk a little bit about cloud storage and what's currently happening there?
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff going on in cloud storage. There's some great talks here. Lots of companies who are into the big data space and so on. On huge, unimaginable scales. Fluid Info is a bit different when it comes to cloud storage. We are a cloud storage company, but we have quite a different take on why the cloud is valuable, and in particular what it does, what's valuable about cloud storage, which I think is quite different from what a lot of other people are sort of trying to get into.
So what is valuable
I can tell you about it. Yeah, of course. That's a great question. Well, I can tell you what I think is sort of not so valuable, which is that there's a lot of enterprises and companies and so on who are sort of doing more of the same, on a bigger scale, faster, bigger data centers and so on, and it's kind of linear. The cloud is fantastic, but as you put more and more data into cloud storage and so on, you're getting linear accumulation of value. And what Fluid Info is trying to do is we're trying to tap into what I think is the real promise of the cloud, which is for shared storage, which is a case where you have more than one company or more than one person is putting information into the same place, and you can then query across it. Because information becomes more valuable when it's in context. If you store stuff in context, then your information is more useful and more valuable. So here's an example. Here's my name tag around my neck. When you go to a conference, we put your name tag around your neck. We don't put it somewhere else. And in most of the world, when you've got information about something, like about your email address or about a URL or about a Twitter user or about a stock or whatever, you have to go and put that information somewhere else. If you could put it in the same place and it was shared with other people's data about the same thing, you could query across it.
And could you share just relevant parts of that, or do you share it all?
Sure, exactly. No, you can share relevant parts. You could say, I want to put an opinion which is public onto this object. I want to have a private rating. I want to put some comments onto it that are private. I want some things that are shared only with a group of people, and there's a permission system and so on. But the main point is that information becomes more valuable when it's stored in context. And you can see that in different ways. You can see it in the human world, but you can also see it in things like Google. They pulled a whole bunch of independent web pages and they put them together in an index and they made it searchable. They created value. Wikipedia is the same in a very different way. They give you a place to store metadata or incremental information about anything, and it's shared. And the information becomes more valuable. And humans, when you have a choice, you always put data into the place that makes it most useful. And that's what Fluid Info is about.
So then you're kind of making all of us data scientists in a way, because I can tag things and I can make it more rich for myself.
You can then, mediated by applications, of course, you can then go and dig into things. A good example is, we've just had an accident in the background. A good example, to give this some color, is you can use Fluid Info to do a query where you say, show me the people who are at Strata in New York right now, who were not at Strata in Santa Clara in February, who have high influence, and who you're following on Twitter and who I haven't met. So if you take a query like that, that's got metadata basically, which is coming from 5 different directions. If all of that data was stored in its own separate databases with their own APIs and so on, you couldn't get at that value. When it's stored in the same place, it's just a query.
So is that query easy for the everyday person to use?
No, not at all. But you want applications. That's why I said, you want this kind of value to be extracted through the mediation of applications that say, hey, you're going to Strata, and here are your friends, and here's the kinds of things that they're reading. They're the O'Reilly books. Here are the speakers that they haven't met yet, and so on. It has to be mediated through applications.
Okay, interesting. So is this also kind of a new form of an API or going in that direction?
There is an API for all of the data in Fluid Info, of course, and it is a new form of API. That's another good question, because unlike with a normal API, which is providing you access to data which is read-only, in Fluid Info, anyone can go in and add any data to any object, which allows unanticipated things to happen. You can have someone else come along and put more tags onto the object and query on it in any way they want, and it's not under control of the original API or even the people who put the original data into the system.
So when someone adds new tags to, say, some info, do I see those too if I'm the owner of the original object? And
Not
then
necessarily.
Okay.
It's like I have an opinion of you, but I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Yeah.
And you can't stop me from having an opinion about you or about New York or about anything. And I can share some things with you and some things not. I can share some things with Alan. We can compare notes. We may include you in a group, we may not. So we're trying to make working with information digitally more like it is in the real world, in the natural world where we do stuff like that, and we work with concepts. Except the concepts in the case of Fluid Info are things like Twitter users and email addresses and URLs and zip codes, basically anything, a sequence of DNA, the title of an O'Reilly book. Why can't I just go and say, hey, there's the title of an O'Reilly book, I own that book.
So I could really index my digital life if I wanted to as an individual.
Yeah, and that's part of the point is that you, as an information architect, when you build an information storage system, you want to make it possible for companies, individuals, applications, your mother, whoever, to come along, groups, to come along to any object without their needs having been anticipated and without them having to ask for permission, and let them put data onto things. And then they can then combine it with other stuff. They can do queries that you didn't anticipate. Other applications can be built that no one could have thought of in advance. And you're sort of opening the world. And you're getting at this fundamental value, which is that, as I said, information becomes more useful, more valuable when it's stored in context.
Yeah, that was one of the things I do like about the new Google Plus, is the ability to have my own tags, my own circles on people without them knowing.
Yeah, it's very important.
And
you want people to be free, and you want companies to be free. You want, the days of read-only information blobs, like HTML blobs that are full of content, but you can't add to them and so on. The days are numbered. I mean, the number could be quite still big. It could be large, but that world is going to go away eventually.
Okay. So Terry, how do people find out more about FluidDB?
You can go to fluidinfo.com and you can read all sorts of stuff. There's a ton of stuff for developers, and there's a lot of stuff on our blog, lots of articles that we've written.
Excellent. Thank you, Terry.
Lots of apps.
All right.
Nice to see you again.
We're off to Mac.